The economic mobilization during World War II was the preparation of resources for a national emergency and the reorganization of the nation's economy and to effectively use resources in support of the total war. From the beginning of World War II, the country quickly mobilized its economy to focus on the industry producing a massive amount of war goods, including arms, ammunition, ships, tanks, and warplanes. In result, this created many jobs for the American people. As the economy started to boom, the U.S. government realized that the victory of war was dependent on the nation's industrial power and was willing to spend as much money as needed to win. The federal budget increased from $8.9 billion in 1939 to over $95 billion in 1945. Federal agencies and committees grew in Washington to control the nation's economic mobilization. The key was the influential War Production Board, the WPB. This controlled the allocations of production and the use of raw materials, machine tools, and faculties, with similar powers to those of the War Industry Board in World War I. American organizations were determined to make the United States the center of the post-World War economy, which was hopefully larger and richer than any other in the world. By 1944, as a result of wage increase and overtime pay, real weekly wages in manufacturing were 50% higher than in 1939 and stabilized through the war. The war also created entirely new technologies, industries, and associated human skills. The war brought full employment and higher, fairer incomes than had been available through the Great Depression. Despite all the problems associated with mobilization during World War II, the achievement was remarkable. The country showed the capability of economic and industrial power. This accomplishment was nowhere near expected and carried out the World War II experience in the development and use of American industry movement. This will be remembered as a case of an economic mobilization to the full-scale war production and finally demobilization.
After World War II, American families had to make many adjustments to their lives and recover from the many hardships and difficulties the war caused. The war had created so many jobs for men, women, and the minority groups, which greatly helped pull the United States out of the Great Depression. By the summer of 1946, when the war had ended, more than 10 million men and women had been released from the armed forces, therefore losing their jobs. To help the veterans' readjustment into society, Congress passed the Servicemen's Readjustment Act in 1944, also known as the GI Bill. The GI Bill helped ease veterans into the civilian lifestyle. It guaranteed a year's worth of unemployment benefits so that veterans were able to go job hunting. It also offered federally guaranteed loans. This was a very big deal for veterans returning from the war and helped tremendously. The returning veterans coming back were in search of homes and suddenly found that there was a shortage in housing. Unable to find homes for themselves, many veterans lived in cramped apartments or with relatives. Many people knew this was a big issue, so developers like William Levitt and Henry Kaiser decided to fix the problem. To increase production of houses, they used assembly line methods to mass produce houses. Levitt offered homes in small residential areas surrounding cities, also known as suburbs, for less than $7,000. Levitt's first post-war development was rows of standardized homes built on treeless lots. This development was located on New York's Long Island, which he named Levittown. All of the houses looked exactly alike, and certain zoning laws ensured that they would stay the same. Americans jumped at the chance to buy these homes and loved the openness and small-town feel to the planned suburbs. Though the war was over, and many families were able to reunite, the tension created by the changes in lives of men and women caused the divorce rate to greatly increase. World War II caused the lives of families to be redefined. Men were usually the breadwinners and heads of the households, while women stayed home and took care of the family. But with the surplus of jobs created from the war, 8 million women, about 75% married, had entered the workforce. Many women didn't want to give up their newfound independence when their husbands returned home. As a result, more than 1 million war marriages ended in 1950.
In the 1950s, more Americans were moving into high-paying jobs, and not many people worked in blue-collar or industrial positions. Many white-collar workers worked at large corporations and government agencies. Some of these corporations expanded in the form of conglomerates. American workers found themselves being standardized. Workers who were doing well and held secure jobs were feeling they lost their individuality. Businesses didn't want creative thinkers, rebels, or anyone who would rock the corporate boat. In The Organization Man, a book that talks about how large organizations were creating company people, companies would give personality tests to make sure their employees working there would fit in. Achieving job security took a psychological toll on Americans because they felt they couldn't express their personalities, but it did allow families to have the good things in life and be financially strong. With automobiles becoming more popular and there being more freeways, more Americans worked in cities and commuted to work. For many, the suburbs embodied the American dream, which meant single family homes, good schools, and a safe and healthy environment for children. As soldiers came home from World War II, there was a rapid increase in the population, known as the baby boom. The baby boom had impacted not only the child care, but the American economy and the education system. In California, a new school opened every 7 days. In 1957, a baby in the U.S. was born every 7 seconds. It was the largest generation in the nation's history. New drugs were introduced to fight and prevent childhood diseases. Many parents raised their children according to the book Common Sense Book of Baby and Child Care. It sold nearly 10 million copies in the 1950s. Americans in the 1950s had more leisure time than ever before. They owned more labor-saving machines such as washing machines, dryers, dishwashers, and lawnmowers. More Americans attended baseball, basketball, and football games. Suburban living made owning a car necessary. Public transportation was not offered to those living in suburbs. Automania spurred local and state governments to construct roads linking between major cities while connecting schools, shopping centers, and workplaces to residential areas. Cars created new problems with noise, exhaust, and polluted air. More car accidents happened than ever before. Traffic jams raised people's stress levels, and heavy traffic damaged the roads. There were more new products to buy than ever before. With more leisure time, people were buying whatever they wanted: blenders, freezers, dryers, and dishwashers. The American dream in the 1950s was a time of prosperity in America because of the economic boom after the end of the Great Depression. Home ownership was considered the height of the American dream. America also saw an increase in material wealth and the growth of suburbs and automobile production.